thank you all for joining today. I know it's super busy, and I think with just how tough the past week has been, I know there's probably been a lot going on. So I just especially want to thank you all for taking time to participate and talk a little bit more about communications. And so just to start, we can just do a quick round of introductions. I think that's the nice thing about having a small group. So my name is Mercy Albaran. Maybe we'll all go around and sort of answer these questions that I have up on the screen here. And so my name is Mercy. I am a senior account executive at Fenton. And in terms of what brings me to this work, I would say a lot of things. I was born and raised in Oakland. Growing up, my communities have been, very affected by mass incarceration and the war on drugs. And so it's been really awesome to work with folks that are working directly to help our people and stop this. And I've worked throughout my career basically doing nonprofit communications. From the Ella Baker Center to Californians for Justice. I was working on some domestic workers' rights, so worked with some folks at PICO. And so, I'm just really excited that I get to work with you all and talk you through some communications. Who would like to go next?
Hey, hi everybody. How you doing today? You hear my audio? Everything's fine?
Yep. Yeah.
All right. My name is Dwight. I'm actually with MCAN. It's coming out of Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
Fairly new to this role, but I've had a lot of experience doing like sales and mostly corporate type of sales and marketing types of experience for most part. But it's kind of new for me, but doing pretty good. And it's not that much of a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Getting people's attention no matter how you look at it. And again, like how you said with your background, also I'm Costa Rican and Jamaican as well. So from deportations to incarcerations, I've been pretty much affected by it all.
Yep. Thank you.
Hi, this is Danielle. I'm a community organizer with Sacramento ACT. And what brings me to this work is just to advance justice. And I feel very passionately about how our faith calls us to do this work. And I love working with faith leaders.
Thank you.
This is Ken Johnson from Oakland Community Organizations in Oakland. And I am the Chief Operating Officer there. I just learned about this online event, and otherwise I would have had our communication specialist join us. But I'm certainly committed to the social justice cause, although I tend to work in the background, watching over the money and the resources. But I thought I would want to learn as much as I could to assist in our own communications efforts in Oakland.
Perfect. Thank you. Anybody else? I think we had some other folks on the line.
Hi, this is Angie Noel. I was having technical problems. Did you just ask for people to check in?
Yeah, Angie. Yeah, if you could tell us your name, your role, and what brings you to this work. We're just doing introduction.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm sorry to join late. My name's Angie Noel, and I'm called Communications Specialist at OCO, Oakland Community Organizations in Oakland.
Great.
And I'm here because I haven't been on the job very long. Feel like I need to get trained up quick, and was really excited to see the whole range of workshops being offered.
Wonderful. Okay, any other folks that haven't spoken yet?
Hi, this is Janae Zaid. I am the community with which is in Minnesota. and I am very new to this job. I've been with them now for 7 weeks. My background is in communications as well as in ministry, so I am a licensed minister. And then I also worked for PR Newswire as a senior editor for 7 years. So, and then additionally, I also had quite an extensive background in activism from a faith-based direction. I was the Minister of Social Justice in Cleveland, Ohio, where I've relocated from for about 3 years. So, yeah.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Hi, it's Trinika. I'm back. I've transitioned into my car.
All right.
And I will put my phone on mute in a minute. But I am the Director of Communications with PICO, California. And I'm just really excited about our call today. As we all know, across the state, across the nation, and it's not indicative of just PICO as a network, but just in nonprofit, communications tends to be one of the most under-resourced components of organizations. And so as just one person, I just finally this year got a partial time communications assistant. It is really impossible for me to really serve all of the needs of the federations within the state of California. So that we were able to come into a little bit of money and hire Fenton to help augment our communications work is really exciting. And this communications training series is probably one of the most exciting components of the total body of work that Fenton is doing for us. So I'm really excited about that. I came to this work, I'm a Black woman. I feel like I ain't got to say really nothing else. And that's why I'm doing, racial and social justice work. That's why I'm here. And from a communications standpoint, my career path is long and broad and not very exciting. But I've been working in nonprofit for probably about a decade now, and have landed myself here within the PICO network. So I'm excited to be on the call and excited to see so many people joining in.
Great. Okay. I think that's everybody. And so it's just always good to, when we start sort of these conversations, whether we're in person or talking via video, it's just great to hear, like, what's the energy like in the room? What brings folks to this work to get us a little grounded? Thank you, Trinika, for sort of the introduction to Fenton. And if I had to sum up one reason why we're doing these trainings is to help you be as effective as you can in terms of communications. I mean, it's just the reality that not every organization can have the resources to invest in, a team of 1 or a team of 5 communications people. So with these trainings, one of our main goals is to really just equip everyone with the skills and at least just, strategies that you need to even just start thinking about communications in another way, so you can bring this to your broader organizations. So I think to start, I'd first like to just start off with a quick kind of warm-up question for folks to talk about. And in obviously, you think communications is somewhat important because you are on this call. So I just would love to hear from folks why you think communications is important for this work and for social change.
I was gonna say, for me, for most part, it really gets the word out there. Mm-hmm. Because for most part, the way I like to look at it, you could pretty much have the best painting in the world, but if you put it in the closet, no one's gonna see it. So communication is really gonna be that piece that really gets the world looking at it.
That's right. Anybody else have thoughts? Why do you think communication is important?
I think it's important because, as you said, it educates folks about what's going on, and then it changes the narrative, and it helps to build pressure for the type of change that we're calling for.
Mm-hmm.
And it changes people's hearts and minds too, who may not be as aware.
Right. Any other comments?
Well, it also inspires the ranks to keep on working in the face of it might be difficult situations or challenges.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, kind of a follow up. All the things that you've all been saying are true. As a follow up, are there one or two examples out there of maybe organizations that you admire or campaigns you admire because of their communications? Like, who have you observed that's been doing a really good job, and why do you think that is?
Color of Change.
How so?
Because they tell a compelling story always.
Mm-hmm.
Their ability to do like rapid response to what is the current story of the day is really unbridled, and they're able to leverage that to activate people to take action. Now, their action up to this point, and I think they're shifting a bit, has been like a lot of like petitions and stuff like that. But whatever their action is, they're able to tell a story, get people to notice the story, to share the story, and to take action, the action that you want. And so to me, that's really impactful.
Can you repeat the name of the source you were talking about?
Color of Change.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Great. What about one other example? Okay. And well, one thing that comes to mind, and I may be a little biased because I used to work with them, is the National Domestic Workers Alliance. So if y'all are familiar with them, they're a network of different coalitions across the country that are working to advance the rights of domestic workers, especially folks, mostly older women of color, mainly immigrant women that are working in the shadows and are not afforded the basic labor rights that most workers have. And so I think that they do a really great job at communications for, number one, again, that storytelling element, but also they're very strategic in that they make sure that all their spokespeople out there and all the people that are sort of leading those stories are people that are directly impacted. Like, they're not telling anyone's story for them. They are empowering folks to actually tell their own story, which I think is amazing. And their call to actions are always very clear. They're always very focused on what they're asking of their audience, whether it's to sign a petition or to come to an event or to call their representative or anything like that. So that's another example that comes to mind. Great. And then just to lay a little bit of a groundwork for this is the first, again, of a series of trainings that we'll be doing, right? Because, I mean, we could talk about communications for hours, for days. And so what this first session is going to focus on is just really thinking about basics for communication strategy. So before you even jump into, okay, what are we going to do about pitching this media thing, or we got to get our stories together, or any sort of tactical things like that, we're starting at the very beginning with our strategy. How do we first make sure that communication is a priority, and how do we come up with that strategy based on, what I'll talk about very soon. And so we're going to be pretty basic in this training. But note that in the next following trainings, we'll get into more specific details for various tactics and things. And so I think one thing to really start off with is, in our organizations, it's really important that we start, and I think the shift has been happening, but moving towards a culture of communication. So I think nonprofits are very talented at working in silos. So we have our program people, we have our development people, we have maybe our communications people, et cetera, right? And when we operate in these silos, communications is always seen as sort of an extra, right? It's always seen as kind of like the sprinkles on top of the cake, like, oh, well, we got to focus on our programming. We got to focus on what we're doing. How we're going to set that up, get funding for that. Oh, and then we'll, figure out communications around it and how to like talk about that, right? But really what we're trying to do here is break those silos and understand that communications is not just the sprinkles, but it's actually the whole cake. You should have communications baked into every single part of your organization's strategy. And so a couple of very quick points that we're going to make in this presentation I would like that to help facilitate conversations in your organizations. Because like all we're saying, like I think it was Dwayne that was like, if you have a beautiful painting, but it's locked up in your closet, or only like these people in this one room can see it, but you're trying to get the people across the street to see it, then like what's the point? Your programs might be amazing, but if donors or your members don't even know what's happening, then it's kind of neither here nor there. And so that's why I think building a culture of communications in your organizations is going to be really important. And just wanted to show an example of how this shift with really prioritizing communications can change an organization. And so I used to be on the communications team at the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights. And, they went through a rebrand, several years ago, where they actually started looking at their communications. And I think a lot of organizations are kind of in a similar situation, with PICO included. You have a bunch of different campaigns you're working on, right? You might be working on Live Free Here. You might be working on, issues with immigration, et cetera, et cetera. At the Ella Baker Center, they had like 5-6 different programs, green jobs, mobilizing communities, books not bars, all kinds of stuff, right? And they had leaders that were out there that like Van Jones that were very prominent. And so it was really hard to, depending on who you talk to at the organization, you would get, and you ask like, what's the Ella Baker Center? What do they do? If you ask like 20 of their staff, you'd get 20 different answers, because they'd say, oh, well, we work on green jobs. I'm a part of this program, blah, blah, blah. And so the danger with that is that you're only getting a piece of what your organization actually does. And so once they decided, okay, we really want to make communications a priority, being able to talk about our whole organization and everything that we do, they started to shift a little bit. And so they weren't talking about all these different programs and silos anymore, but they were sort of all united under, kind of messages that incorporate the whole organization. That the Ella Baker Center, they even created a new tagline called "She Led, So Can You." So overall, no matter what we do, whether it's about jobs, addressing youth prisons, violence, anything like that, it's all about empowering leadership in local communities, because that was what Ella Baker was all about. And so focusing on that. So from there, like you could see that even just with the stories they were telling, how they redid their website, the different spokespeople that they started getting across, so it wasn't just Van talking all the time. You really saw that communications was starting to get baked into everything that they did. No matter what campaign it was or anything like that, communications always had to be a part of the strategy. So that's just a really quick case study. And so where to start, I think with number one, when you're thinking of your communication strategy, is with your goals. There's going to be 3 things that we're going to talk about in this training. And number one is going to be goals. That's the first thing you want to do. And so figure out what exactly are we trying to do, like with this initiative or as an organization. And one tool that I definitely like to recommend to a lot of folks is setting up your goals as SMART. So SMART. So thinking about your goals in these specific ways. Is it Number one, is this goal specific? How so? Write it out. Number two, is it measurable? How can we measure it? Number three, is it actually achievable? Four, is it realistic, given our capacity or whatever our reach might be or anything like that? And number five, is it timely? Is there some sort of timeline for this? Because if you have a goal and it can be, maybe it can be 2, 3, 5 years from now, but actually naming like a concrete time, you can hold yourself to that goal. Has anybody heard of SMART goals before? Yes? Have you ever used them in your organization planning before? Somewhat, little bit. Okay. Yeah. But for sure, being able to organize your goals and specifying them in this way is a great way to do it. So if you haven't used SMART goals yet, definitely do it. And so, next with goals, again, kind of thinking about where do we go. And here are some different examples of goals. Some of them are not that great, and some of them are great. So if your goal is to get awareness for your organization, that's not really that helpful. Number one, it's not very specific. Awareness to who? Awareness for what, right? If your goal is to get media coverage, that's not really a goal. Media is... Oh, there's a echo. Oh, okay, I think it's gone. But so media is a great tactic. It's a great way to, try to reach an audience or anything, but actually just getting coverage is not a goal within itself. So here's some examples of more helpful goals. Again, being as specific as you can. Are you trying to advance a particular cause or initiative or bill? Are you trying to grow your membership within your federation? Is there a particular event or something really timely that's coming up that you're trying to promote or get on people's radar? That is more of a specific goal. That is how you want to start going, not just, we want to build awareness. We want folks to know about us. That's not really that helpful. And so again, number one, and throughout this presentation, we're going to have this kind of little checklist for your communication strategy. And number one on that is creating those goals. And I would encourage you all to, after this presentation, even to just, if you have a staff meeting coming up, or if you just want to take a few minutes on your own to kind of think about it, write out at least one, or maybe 2 or 3 SMART goals that you have. I know the year's almost ending, so maybe for 2017, what are some organizational goals that you might have, and lay them out in that SMART format. Is it specific? Is it measurable? And then writing out how. And so you've got your goal. So what's next? Now that you've got your goal, you have to think about, who is my audience going to be that I'm going to try and reach with this communication strategy? Because as we all know, different groups of people need different things or respond in different ways. Like y'all probably wouldn't talk to your representatives up in Sacramento the same way that you would to a group of faith leaders or to a local congregation, right? There's different ways to reach those folks. There's different messages to use. And so again, when we think about trying to be as specific as we can and targeted as we can, it's really important to think about who our priority audiences are. Because it can't be everybody, because you can't reach everybody. And then again, that pairs along with wanting to be as specific with your goals. You want to be super specific with your audience as well. Oops. And so that's a little... So there are a couple videos that I want to share as kind of like a case study for audience, especially since different folks need different things and messages really matter. This is just a, really quick example. Are folks familiar with Prop 8 and marriage equality in California? How that was a really big fight a few years ago. And so this is actually a really amazing example of how how a campaign changed its message because it wasn't reaching its audience. It wasn't reaching the right audience. And so there are a couple of, I'm trying to work this out here. So there's a couple of ads here. The first one that I'm going to show you is the first set of ads that they were doing when they were trying to strike down this proposition that was trying to go against marriage equality. And so this was their first video.
Have you
Sorry, let me get this going. Try this again. We might have to do it this way. Okay.
Have you seen the TV ads for Prop 8? They're absolutely not true, says California's Superintendent of Public Schools.
Prop 8 has nothing to do with schools or kids. Our schools aren't required to teach anything about marriage, and using kids to lie about that is shameful.
That's why California teachers and every major newspaper say no on Prop 8. Because regardless of how you feel about marriage, it's wrong to eliminate fundamental needs. No on 8. Unfair and wrong.
So did everybody see that and hear that? Yes? So that was their first sort of ads against no on 8. And Proposition 8 passed. And so people got together and said, where did we go wrong? Like, what happened? What were we saying that wasn't resonating with people? And then folks, a part of that campaign, started really thinking clearly about their communication, saying, okay, I think there was an audience problem here. Who are we trying to reach, and how do we reach them? And you'll see in the new ad, it's very different. So just take a look at this one, and then we'll talk about what the differences are. And sorry, it's a little bit small, but
we have 4 generations of our family sitting around this table. Dottie and I've been together for 59 years now. I flew in the last battle of World War II. I couldn't see how anyone who had been in combat could ever be cruel to anyone ever again. It takes a great deal of bravery to be a lesbian. I'm so proud of Katie and Alex.
We're pretty proud of you.
Oh, good. Marriage is too precious a thing not to share.
I would, in my lifetime, really like to be able to see Katie and Alex get married legally.
This isn't about politics. It's about family and how we as people treat one another.
okay. So those were the 2 ads. And then after that, marriage equality passed in Maine. And so what did y'all notice in these 2 videos?
We have 4.
I was gonna say one is like definitely more family oriented, and it's instead of like saying what's going on, he's actually telling his own story versus us telling the story for him for the most part.
Yeah.
The other one was like really dark, and it was fearful. And honestly, I couldn't tell which side it was because it was kind of confusing.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts, reactions?
I thought it was the second ad was personal, and the first ad was impersonal, and I think that was the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so in Maine specifically, so that shift in that ad was all communication strategy. That was very strategic. So in Maine, they were trying to, a lot of the folks that were sort of against marriage equality, a lot of them were these more moderate or so, some folks of faith, moderate or so voters. And so one thing that they really had to consider is, okay, so these are the people that we have to move. You know, there are going to be people that are just, you know, they aren't going to be with us, you know. But how do we get those folks that, could possibly move to our side? And so, when they thought about, what were the different ads that they could do, they thought, okay, so how do we reach these folks? What are things that they care about? And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. I just wanted to show this example. We'll talk a little bit more in the next slides. And so again, we kind of talked about this. Just another recap is you want to be as specific as you can with that audience. So even with that Prop 8 ad, the first one didn't really seem to target anybody. It seemed to kind of talk to, if you're a voter, or anyone in Maine, so the general public voters, again, not really that helpful. You want to be as specific as you can so you can tailor your messages, how you want to reach them. You can't really do that if it's really broad. And then another thing that you want to think about is, so, okay, we already went through step 1, figure out our goals, right? So that when you're thinking about your audience, the question you want to ask yourself is, who do I need to make sure I can achieve my goal? What type of audience, without whom will I not be able to achieve this goal? So that becomes a priority audience. And so here are just some examples of some more specific audiences that you would want to think about depending on what your goals might be. But, if maybe you're trying to grow your base in Riverside or particular county or anything. So you might want to target faith leaders specifically who are leading these congregations. Who can we reach out to? Are you working on some sort of initiative related to education or anything? School board members in Oakland, or in, Boston, wherever you might be. That's definitely more specific. Again, same thing here. Sorry, this is very California specific. But again, targeting formerly incarcerated folks in Merced County. Maybe you're trying to do some more base building, or you're trying to push something through legislation. Maybe there are particular representatives that are in areas that are, kind of in the movable middle that aren't quite with you, but you want to try and get them on board to pass some specific bill or anything like that. Those are the people that you want to target. So again, you've got your goal. Who do you need to make sure it happens? If you're trying to pass a bill, you're probably going to need those legislators to vote on it. That's how specific you want to get. And so once you have that audience, you need to think about how are we going to target them? Think about these, ask yourself these questions about this audience. What do they care about? What could be their blocks? What are their values? What influences them, and where do they get their information? So let's go back to the examples of the two advertisements. So thinking about who they were trying to target, it was obvious that the folks that they were trying to reach out to cared about family. A lot of the moderate voters there, that's a pretty core value that a lot of people, it's pretty rare that, you would find someone that would say oh yeah, family is not important, anything like that. But what are some blocks? So in that first ad, we could see that they were really focusing on Prop 8 is not this, it's not this, they're not gonna teach about, gay marriage or anything like that in schools. It's not about forcing you to think about this way, so obviously those were some blocks for people. They may have not been against, people wanting to get married, but maybe there was some issue with, well, I don't want this to be some sort of required class or anything in school. But, the opposition was putting out all that messaging about it's going to change schools and everything like that. But really, it wasn't true. Those were all lies. But so that was a block. Values and influence, again, this value of family, love between two people that care about each other, wanting to share that through something like marriage. And similarly to influence, families, again, could be faith leaders, anything like that. And so you can really tell in shift from those two ads that they really started thinking about, okay, how do we reach these people? They care about family. They care about love and making sure that, you know, like marriage is presenting marriage as an important thing that two people should share if they love and care about one another. And that's how they changed that. And so as we can tell, we already saw through those ads how drastically different it was. You know, it wasn't painting this picture of fear, but painting this picture of like love and family. And so that was just a really great example of that, targeting your audience.
And also, Mercy,
yes.
quick question. And so also it's about like not reinforcing the negative messaging, right? And how just even saying what the negative is and then refuting it, what is imprinted on people's mind is the negative. And so as opposed to trying to counter that narrative, it's just about being focused on pushing forth the narrative, the positive narrative that you're trying to promote.
That's right. So that first ad was saying like, no, it doesn't do anything in schools, and no, it doesn't. But then you just said that you just started talking about gay marriage in schools. So even though you were talking about that fact, you just said it already again. You know, that the opposition's messaging. You know, and a good fun fact is that it takes about 3 to 7, sometimes upwards 13 times to hear something until someone actually processes it. And so if your opposition just said gay marriage has nothing to do with schools, and they've heard that ad 6 times, and then you just said in your ad that gay marriage and schools, they just heard it all that many times. So no matter what sort of facts you put out there, that's what they remember. So for sure, that's a very important point. Yeah. Okay. And so a part of targeting that audience is about, okay, well, we need to learn about that target audience. And so, you know, I mean, there's different ways to do this depending on how much capacity you have or not. You know, some people like to do focus groups, stakeholder interviews like that. Sometimes it might just even be a simple survey. Are you having like, let's say you are, you know, specifically in California, we are trying to spread the word about Prop 47 so folks can reclassify their felonies to misdemeanors, since that is what is made available by that bill. And so we're trying to reach those folks. One way we might want to gather information about how do we reach them would be to take a survey. You know, things that a lot of groups have been doing in California is having these sort of expungement clinics. You know, putting it out there where folks can have access to lawyers for free to help them figure out how they can change their record. And so I know for some groups, one way to sort of get more information on folks that are coming in is even just to set up a simple survey. You know, we're already having this event, or, you know, whatever, what have you. Let's put together, you know, a little sheet of paper with 5 questions and figure out more about them. You know, there's also a lot that you can learn from Google, actually. I prefer to say Auntie Google, but, you know, some people say Uncle Google. But there's a lot of, you know, data and studies out there, too, about different folks, so that you can just Google also. That's actually really helpful. You don't have to have a ton of money to do your own research. Some of that research might already be out there. So if you might have an intern or a volunteer that might have some time to do some research on that, there's always Auntie Google. And yeah, there's, again, many other things. Evaluations, I already talked about, sort of sign-in sheets or surveys at any events that you might have, or gatherings. And sometimes you can also just creep on people on social media. You know, if you're trying to target a certain legislator to get them to pass a bill of yours, see what they might be saying on their Twitter, on their Facebook, you know, what kind of stories they might be talking about, what issues are important to them online. It's crazy how much information is available online now and public to people. So yeah, learn about that audience. Okay, cool. So we're back to our checklist. We've got 2 things down now. Number 1, your goals. So you've got your goal. And number 2, your audiences. Who do you need to achieve those goals? So those are the main things. And only until you figure out your goals and your audience is when you want to start talking about tactics. So I know when we think about communications, we're like, oh, okay, we got to go pitch this story, or we got to go put out a blog, we need a press release, we need to have an event, we got to have you know, whatever, update on our website or all that, what have you. Honestly, you can't start thinking about those things until you figure out those goals and those audiences, because all those things will determine what kind of tactics you might use. You know, again, if you're targeting legislators, having an online action or something like that might not necessarily reach them. If they're responsive to, you know, media stories, then maybe a media strategy is a way to go about it, you know. But if you're trying to build your base and trying to get more members, trying to get the New York Times to write a story about you might not be the best way to do it, you know. So again, I feel like in nonprofits and in nonprofit communications and in nonprofits in general, we love to go into the tactics right away. But I think if there's one thing that you can get from this training, it's that you need to set, it doesn't even have to be that much time, just a little bit of time to step back and think more strategically about, okay, wait, hold up. Before we think about what we're going to do, we need to go back to what is our goal and what is the audience that we need to achieve that goal. Because then once you have those things determined, the tactics can fall in from there. And like I said before, like a lot of the next trainings that will be coming up will be focusing on these sorts of different tactics, social media, media, or anything like that. But this is more about taking that step back and thinking, okay, let's put our strategy hat on first and think about, again, goal, audience, then tactics. Yeah. And so again, we go back to this checklist. These are the 3 things that you need: your goals, audience, and then what are the tactics that are going to be most effective. And so that's basically all I've got. Again, you know, this is really just an introduction to communication strategy and kind of going into how do we make sure communications is baked into all of the parts of our organization. And so I know I talked about quite a few things. And so I want to make sure that there's a little bit of room for questions. Is there anything that I may have not addressed that you have questions about? Anything that piqued your interest that you want to learn more? Anything that stuck out?
Yeah, so this is Shanika. So my question is, or it's really kind of a question to folks who are on the call, who are working within organizations, because as I'm thinking about it, I really do think that a lot of the communications that we do when we are doing communications is targeted towards like our leaders. So like even like I'm thinking of all the videos that I have created or have been a part of or commissioned the creation of over the last 12 months, and really it was targeted towards the people that we want to get down and fight with us. But I'm wondering with other people on the call, are you all, if you're doing communications, are you doing any communications that are really targeted at the group of people that you're trying to change or who have the power to make the changes that you're looking for? Just curious. And I know that there are some instances when our communications are targeted at those people, but when I think of the bulk of like the flyers we create and the videos we create and the posts that we put up on our social media and all of that kind of stuff, it seems to be really targeted towards our constituents or potential constituents. So just thoughts from other people.
I think for us, definitely our social media, our newsletters, it's all geared towards our leaders. When we do op-eds, that's like geared towards like an outside audience of voters. Yeah, but a lot of it really is geared towards us.
Anybody else? So I guess for me, it's and not to say that necessarily has to change, right? But it is something to think about.
Yes.
It is something to think about as we're thinking about how we're going to move forward in our communications efforts and how much energy we're going to continue putting in. We're going to put in one place or the other place. And I know much of the work that organizers are doing is about base building. And so it makes sense that we should spend a lot of time focusing our communications on trying to bring people into the fold. That's really, really important. I'm not devaluing that. But it is something to think about as folks are considering like what their communication strategy is going to be going forward, particularly for 2017.
Yeah. I would also add along those same lines. I spoke to a comms director here at another one of the organizations here, and she gave me some really good advice in regards to, I think a lot of it is linked directly to this, but a huge reason why we tend to do so much communications with our base is because we're often working off of the needs of our organizers, and because their entire job and their self-interest is all put into organizing our base, and we're working off of that, then that's generally who we're speaking to. So one thing that she gave me was that in creating my communication strategy, I need to remember that that I'm looking at, because we have a million different campaigns on a million different issues, but that I look at Isaiah as a whole. So I need to be the comms director for Isaiah and not for all these independent campaigns. Because I notice when a lot of the work that I do that is focused primarily on our base, a lot of especially with our social media and stuff, it's always directly linked to some kind of issue or some kind of campaign. Whereas when I'm putting out a press release for the wider audience, this is what Isaiah is doing. Like, this is how our entire message has this center and where we're coming from. So when we're thinking of these goals and our audience, if that audience is going to be a wider one, then I think keeping the focus on the fact that you are not just the communications director for so-and-so, some organizer in their campaign.
Right. Very important. Again, like how we were kind of talking about earlier, right? We are so good at working in silos. Like, nonprofits should get an award. And I totally hear you. I mean, I was in-house at nonprofits for a while as well. And it was like I was being pulled in so many different directions. It's like, okay, so-and-so, it's got this action, we're trying to, have this event for our members. We need to do X, Y, Z. I need you to do this. And then we'd have our ED being like, okay, well, I'm having a meeting with donors and I need, some collateral talking about our stuff. Like, I need that too. And you know what I mean? And so it's funny how, again, it's that idea of communications is extra. Like, it's not built into, well, we should be thinking about this from the beginning, And so I know a challenge for a lot of organizations is finding that time and that space to be with your leadership and your program officer or directors, anything like that, base builders, to actually talk about this. And I know that's always a big concern. Like, well, I don't have time. We don't have time. And so I really, really encourage people. And I mean, you all are on this call, you obviously see that there's a value to communications. And so I encourage you all to, as you're getting together and talking about your 2017 planning, any staff meetings or strategy building sessions that might be coming up, there's no better space to start talking about it if you already have people starting to come together and talk about what are we going to do next year, and deciding, okay, what are our 1, 2, 3 main goals as an organization? for 2017 or 2018, whatever, what have you. And from there, being that voice saying like, okay, cool, these are our goals. Who are we trying to reach? And building the communications into that, baking it into those plans. You know, I think we're also really good at having separate communications plans, having a communications plan and then having like a strategic plan for the organization. No, those should go together. Those should go together, right? And so if there's any spaces coming up when you are talking about that strategy, that's the time to talk about communications, you know. And whether it's, or sorry, go ahead. Somebody trying to speak? No? Okay. Cool. But yeah, bake that in. I totally hear you. Are there any, we have a few minutes left. Are there any other questions or things that stood out for people? Are there any sort of questions that you have in your head now that this has happened? Like, what do I do? How do I do this?
This is Shanika again with PICO, California. I just want to name that there are a couple of people who are on the call who are not in California, but if you are in California, you're a PICO California Federation, then there is a amount of time that is available for PICO California Federation from this. So if you decide that like the thing that you really want Benson to assist you with, to walk with you with, to review on your behalf is your communication strategy or the portion of your overall organizational strategy that is focused on communication for 2017, then make sure that you take advantage of that opportunity. We've never had this kind of resource available to us heretofore, and definitely not in the 3 years that I've been here. So I want to make sure that people are making really good use of this resource because it's not guaranteed to happen again.
Yeah, thank you, Tranika. Any other thoughts or questions? Slides you'd like to see again? No? Okay. So then I would just like to say then, you know, this session is being recorded, and I will also make available a PDF version of this actual presentation. So if you have staff members, leaders that were not able to attend, but you want to make sure that they see this and get this knowledge, we will make that available to you all. Again, you know, take a look at that checklist. It's very simple. You know, I'm not trying to overwhelm you with sort of like a communications or whatever strategic plan template, but even just embedding these 3 questions in whatever plans you might be doing will already make a really big difference if you haven't already had communications baked into your organization. And so, yeah, I think, Tranika, you and I can still talk about what's the best way to disseminate this information. But we will have the recording and the PDF available for folks. And so for folks on the call, I just want to say thank you so much for joining, and that this is just number 1 of this communications training series. So I really hope that you can join us for the other ones that we're going to have. I know in California we will have an in-person one, but the rest of them will be available through webinar. This was really just a communication strategy teaser, right? We're going to be going into how to utilize media specifically. We're also going to be going into messaging and storytelling, and we're also going to talk about social media. So again, take a look at the website and sort of the emails that have gone out about this series. Please sign up. You know, put this, you know, add this to your calendars. We have so much more to talk about, and it's just really exciting. So, contact me. You know, California folks, like Tranika was saying, you have a dedicated body of hours to sort of walk you through any sort of assistance you might need with communications. But I'm also happy to, you know, even just do little quick emails or whatever with all of our people across the country. If you have quick questions or advice you might need or anything like that, I'm an email away. Whether you're in Massachusetts or Texas, I don't care. But Fenton is here, and so we're happy to help. And so, yeah, please sign up for the other webinars. And yeah, are there any other final comments?
Yes, for the people who are in California, as you know, we will have our spokesperson training in person on December 1st as a part of our key/state leadership assemblies that's going on at the end of the week. We have space for up to 30 people. We have communicated with the director the breakdown of like reimbursement from California for people that you send. But please start thinking about and having conversations with, the 1, 2, or 3 people, depending on your organization, that you want to send to this spokesperson training. Again, it's an opportunity that we've not had before in the state of California. So really take advantage of this resource.
Great. Any other last comments? Okay. Well, I just want to thank you all. We're a minute over the half hour, so I just want to quickly say thank you so much for joining us. Again, I can't emphasize enough that I'm really honored to sort of work alongside y'all. The work that we're doing is really hard and really important. And so it's just been an honor getting to talk to y'all. And so again, please shoot me an email if you have any questions or anything like that with follow up on this. Otherwise, we'll be in contact about having access to this training and the slides that we offered. And so again, thank you so much. I think especially in this time that we are in our country right now, it's really important to sort of recognize how critical and life-changing this work is. And I send a lot of hope and love, and there's a lot of energy out there to stand up for our folks. So let's keep it going. And thank you for all that you do.
I'm sorry, I have one late question to ask.
Yes.
How do we actually sign up for the remaining workshops?
Hello?
I have a schedule and a place to just join, but I don't know where to sign up.
Right.
In the invitation that you're looking at, there should be registration links for each of the webinars. If not, you can email me, or you have Mercy's email up there. She can send you the link to the homepage that houses all of our communications training. But it's www.picocalifornia.org/communications training. And so if you go to that website, that page on our website, you'll be able to see all of the trainings, and then you can click a link on that page to register for each one.